That evening, when most of the house was quiet, he found her in the kitchen washing dishes. "Amaka," he whispered, "I need to talk to you." Amaka looked around nervously, then nodded. They stepped aside, away from curious ears. "I received a threat," Patnaji said quietly, showing her the notes. "Someone wants me to stop asking questions, but I can't. I believe Madame Adora is hiding something dangerous." Amaka's eyes widened with fear. "Baba, I have seen more strange things. Last night, she came back with the same man in black. They went into the hidden room again. I heard chanting, scary words I didn't understand." Patnaji clenched his jaw. "She's deeper into this than I thought." "Amaka," he said firmly, "I need you to be my ears and eyes. Watch her when I can't, but be careful. Don't let her know." Amaka nodded, though fear lingered in her eyes. Days passed. Patnaji and Amaka worked together in secret. They discovered that Adora often meets the man in black late at night. Sometimes she left the mansion entirely, disappearing for hours before returning just before dawn. One night, Patnaji decided to follow her. When Adora slipped out of the house, he crept after her, careful to stay hidden in the shadows. She moved quickly through the dark streets until she reached an old abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Patnaji hid behind the walls and peeked through the window. Inside, Adora met with the hooded man. They stood around a large table covered with strange items, red candles, animal bones, and more pictures of Obinna. Adora's voice was cold as she spoke. "Obinna is completely under my spell. Soon he will sign over everything, his businesses, his properties. After that, he will be useless to me." The hooded man laughed darkly. "And the old gate man?" Adora's eyes flashed with anger. "If he continues to interfere, we will get rid of him." Patnaji's heart pounded. "They plan to kill me." He crept away quietly, his mind racing. He couldn't let fear stop him. His son's life and his own, depending on what he did next. The old man had started a dangerous game, and now it was a matter of survival. Patnaji returned to the mansion just before dawn, his heart pounding with fear and determination, his old legs trembling from both exhaustion and the weight of the truth he carried. "They want to kill me," he thought, "but they have to do more than threaten me to stop me." Obinna left for work that morning, as usual, kissing Adora goodbye, completely unaware of the storm brewing around him. Patnaji watched, his chest tightened with frustration. How can my own son be so blind? Later that day, Patnaji decided he couldn't stay silent any longer. He waited for Obinna to return from work. When he arrived, Patnaji approached him again, ignoring the risk. "Sir, please," he begged, his voice low but firm. "I know you don't believe me." Obinna frowned, annoyed. "Didn't I tell you to stop this nonsense? Are you mad? Leave me alone." Patnaji's heart broke, but he refused to back down. "Just give me 5 minutes. If I am wrong, I will never speak again." Obinna sighed heavily. "Fine, 5 minutes." Patnaji led him to the hidden door in the garden. He pulled back the vines and pointed. "Do you know about this door?" Obinna's eye narrowed. "No." Patnaji opened it, and they climbed down into the secret room. When Obinna saw the boxes of money, strange symbols, and his own photos marked with red line, his face went pale. "What is this?" Obinna whispered, his voice shaking. "Your wife's secrets." Patnaji replied, "I overheard her planning to take everything from you. She's using dark powers to control you. Obinna stared in disbelief. He shook his head as if trying to wake up from a nightmare. No, Adora wouldn't. She would, Pa Nnaji said softly, and she already has. Suddenly, they heard footsteps above. Adora's voice echoed from the garden. Obinna, are you there? Pa Nnaji grabbed his son's arm. We have to leave now. She can't find us here. They quickly climbed out and hid behind a wall, watching as Adora entered the garden. Her face calm but her eyes sharp, scanning the area. She knew something was wrong. Obinna's face was filled with confusion and pain. I loved her, he whispered. Pa Nnaji placed a hand on his shoulder. Love is not blind, my son. It sees, but it forgives. This time, you cannot forgive. You must survive. That night, Obinna finally saw Adora's true face. And for the first time, Pa Nnaji wasn't fighting alone. But Adora wasn't going to give up easily. She had dark plans, and now she knew they were onto her. Obinna couldn't sleep that night. His mind replayed everything: the secret room, the strange symbols, his marked photos, and most of all, the painful realization that his wife Adora had been living a lie. Meanwhile, Pa Nnaji sat quietly outside the gatehouse, his eyes fixed on the mansion's glowing window. He knew Adora would strike soon. People like her didn't like being exposed. The next morning, Adora acted as if nothing had happened. She greeted Obinna with a warm smile, kissed his cheek, and prepared his favorite breakfast. But Obinna didn't smile back. His heart was heavy with betrayal. Adora, he said softly, staring at her over the dining table. Where were you last night? Adora's hand froze mid-air, holding a cup of tea. Then she smiled sweetly, her eyes sharp beneath the surface. I was in bed, my love. Why did you ask? Obinna didn't respond. He just nodded, pretending to believe her. But inside, he was boiling with anger. She's a liar, he thought, and I need to catch her red-handed. Later that day, Obinna secretly followed Adora when she left the house. Pa Nnaji stayed behind, praying silently for his son's safety. Obinna trailed Adora through winding streets until she arrived at the same abandoned warehouse Pa Nnaji had discovered. Obinna parked his car at the distance and crept closely, hiding behind a pile of rusty metal. Through a crack in the wall, he saw Adora meeting the hooded man again. This time, they were not alone. 3 other figures in dark robes stood around a table. Obinna's heart raced as he listened. Obinna is getting suspicious, Adora said closely. I think the old man has poisoned his mind. The hooded man chuckled darkly. Then it is time to get rid of both of them. Obinna's breath caught in his throat. She wants to kill me? Adora continued. I will make him sign over his businesses soon. After that, he is useless. Obinna's chest burned with rage. The woman I loved wants me dead. He slipped away quietly, his mind spinning. When he returned home, he found Pa Nnaji waiting. I heard everything, Obinna whispered. His voice trembled with fury. You were right all along. Pa Nnaji placed a hand on his son's shoulder. I wish I wasn't. But there was no time for regret. They needed a plan. Adora was dangerous, and now she knew they were onto her. The masks had fallen, and the real battle was about to begin. Obinna sat in his room, staring at the walls that once felt like home, but now felt like a prison. The woman he had loved, trusted, and shared his dreams with was nothing more than a with was nothing more than a snake hiding behind a beautiful smile. Pa Nnaji entered quickly. We have to act fast, my son. Adora will not wait. She knows we have seen the truth. Obinna nodded slowly. We need a plan. Pa Nnaji leaned in, his voice low. We will set a trap. Obinna's eyes narrowed. A trap? Yes, Pa Nnaji replied. We will pretend that nothing has changed. You will act like you believed her lies, but we will be watching her every move. Obinna's heart raced with both fear and determination. And when she sleeps, we strike, Pa Obinna said firmly. That evening, Obinna returned home with a forced smile. He greeted Adora warmly, pretending everything was normal. He even bought her flowers. Adora's eyes sparkled with delight. Or was it suspicion? She accepted the flowers, kissed him softly, and said, How was your day, my love? Obinna swallowed his anger and replied, Wonderful, because I get to come home to you. But inside, his heart was screaming. Pa Nnaji watched from the shadows, observing every details, how Adora's smile never reached her eyes, and how her fingers tightened slightly around the flower stem, as if she sensed something was wrong. Days passed, and Obinna played his role perfectly. He laughed with Adora, dined with her, and even shared stories like they used to. But all the while, he gathered evidence, recording conversations, following her secretly, and working with Pa Nnaji to uncover her dark dealings. One night, Adora made a mistake. Obinna pretended to sleep, but he kept one eye slightly open. Adora quietly slipped out of the bed, thinking he was fast asleep. She tiptoed to the study room, unaware that Pa Nnaji was hiding nearby. Obinna followed silently. Through a crack in the door, they saw her pull out a small black box. She opened it to reveal strange objects, red beads, a lock of Obinna's hair, and a small doll that looked like him. Adora whispered in a language Obinna didn't understand, her voice low and filled with dark power. Obinna's heart pounded. She's using charm to control me? Pa Nnaji signaled him to stay calm. They had what they needed, proof. The next morning, Obinna acted like nothing had happened, but inside, he was ready. The trap was set. Now it is time to spring it. The next few days were a tense game of pretending. Obinna smiled, laughed, and even held Adora's hand, but behind his eyes was a storm of rage and betrayal. Pa Nnaji watched closely, his old heart beating with both fear and hope. We have everything we need, Obinna thought. The recordings, the photos of the dark rituals, and the charm box, all proof of her wickedness. But exposing Adora wasn't enough. She was dangerous, like a wooden snake. They needed to be careful. Pa Nnaji came up with a plan. We will confront her, he said one evening, as they sat in the gatehouse, whispering in the dark. But not alone. We will invite people, friends, business partners, even elders from the village. She won't expect it. Obinna agreed. If everyone sees her true face, she can't escape. The next weekend, Obinna told Adora he was hosting a special gathering to celebrate their marriage anniversary. Adora smiled, her eyes gleaming with fake love. That's wonderful, my love, she poured. I will make sure it's perfect. She had no idea she was walking into her own trap. The day of the gathering arrived. The mansion was filled with important guests, Obinna's business partners, close friends, and even Chief Okafor, a respected elder from the village. Everyone laughed, ate, and enjoyed the music. Adora moved gracefully among them, charming the crowd with her beauty and sweet words. Then Obinna stood up to give a speech. My friends, he began. his voice steady. I am grateful for your presence today, but this is not just a celebration. It's also a day of truth. The room grew silent. Adora's smile froze. Obinna continued, I want to show you all something. Pa Nnaji stepped forward, holding the black box of charms. Obinna displayed the recordings of Adora's dark rituals. Her voice clear and cold as she spoke of controlling him and taking his wealth. Gasps filled the room. People whispered, eyes wide with shock. Adora's face twisted with fury. The masks had fallen. She stood up, her voice sharp like a blade. You fools! Do you think you can stop me? Obinna faced her, his heart pounding. Your lies are over, Adora. Adora's eyes darkens, her sweet voice gone. You were easy to fool, Obinna. Weak men always are. But as she tried to leave, the guest blocked her path. The truth were out, and there was nowhere to run. Pa Nnaji stepped forward, looking into her cold eyes. You thought I was just an old gatekeeper, but I am Obinna's father, and today your evil ends. Adora's face twisted with rage and fear. The battle was over, or so they thought. The room was frozen in stunned silence. The once charming Adora now stood exposed, her beauty overshadowed by the darkness in her heart, her eyes moving around the room like a trapped animal, seeking an escape, but there was none. Obinna's business partners, friends and village elders stood firm, their faces filled with disbelief and anger. How could such a beauty hide such evil? They wondered silently. Pa Nnaji stepped forward, holding the black box of charms high for all to see. This is the true face of Adora, a woman who hides wickedness behind a smile. Adora's lips coiled into a cold smile. You think this is the end, she whispered darkly. Before anyone could react, she pulled a small pouch from her dress, a charm filled with dark powers. With a swift motion, she threw it to the ground. A thick black smoke exploded, filling the room. People screamed, coughing and trembling as the smoke burned their eyes. Amidst the chaos, Adora dashed towards the door, but Pa Nnaji was faster than anyone expected from the old man. With surprising strength, he grabbed her by the arm. You are not going anywhere, he growled. Adora struggled, her nails scratching at his skin, her face twisted with fury. Let me go, you foolish old man. But Pa Nnaji held on. Obinna, coughing through the smoke, rushed forward and helped his father pin her down. When the smoke cleared, the guests stared in horror. Adora was no longer the graceful, elegant woman they knew. Her face had twisted into something almost inhuman. Her eyes wide, her beauty faded, replaced by something dark and terrifying. Chief Okafor stepped forward, his voice steady despite the fear in the room. She's not just wicked, she's possessed by dark forces. The guests murmured in agreement. Some crossed themselves, others whispered prayers. Obinna's heart shattered as he looked at Adora. Why? He whispered. I gave you everything. My love, my trust, my heart. Why did you do this? Adora laughed bitterly. Because fools like you are easy to break. You were nothing but a stepping stone to wealth and power. Those words stung more than any wound. Pa Nnaji stood tall, his voice strong. We will not let evil to win today. They called in spiritual leaders from the village, wise men and women who knew how to deal with dark forces. Prayers filled the mansion, drowning out Adora's scream of rage. As the prayer grew louder, Adora's strength faded. She collapsed to the floor, her body shaking violently before going still. When it was over, she was no longer the woman Obinna had married. Obinna fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Pa Nnaji placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. You have lost a wife, my son, but you have gained the truth. And sometimes that's the most painful gift of all. But the story wasn't over yet. The darkness Adora had brought into their lives had left scars that would take them time to heal. The mansion was quiet after Adora's final outburst. The guest has left, whispering tales of what they had witnessed. Some were too afraid to speak openly, while others couldn't stop talking about the woman who hid evil behind a beautiful face. Obinna sat alone in his room, staring at the empty space where Adora once slept beside him. His heart felt like a stone, heavy with pain and regret. How did I not see this? He thought, his eyes filled with tears. Pa Nnaji entered quickly, his face tired but calm. My son, it is over. Obinna shook his head. No, it's not. The memories are still there. The betrayals, the lies, they are still here. Pa Nnaji sat beside him. I know, but you are alive, and that means you have the chance to heal. Obinna looked at his father. His eyes softened. For years, he had pushed Pa Nnaji away, embarrassed by his simple ways, ashamed of the old man who stood by the gate like a stranger. But now, he saw the truth. His father had been the greatest protector all along. I'm sorry, Papa, Obinna whispered, his voice breaking. I was blind. I treated you like you were nothing when you were everything. Pa Nnaji smiled gently, his eyes filled with tears. A father's heart does not hold grudges. I only wanted to keep you safe. They sat in silence, the pain between them slowly melting into something softer, something like healing. Days turned into weeks. The mansion felt emptier, but it was also lighter, free from the dark energy Adora had left behind. Obinna focused on rebuilding his life, but he never forgot the lesson he would learn. He also made a big decision. One morning, he walked to the gatehouse where Pa Nnaji was sweeping the front yard. Papa, Obinna said softly, you don't have to be a gatekeeper anymore. Pa Nnaji looked up, his brow raised. Oh, Obinna smiled. Because this is your house now too. You are not a servant. You are my father. You always have been. Pa Nnaji's heart swelled with pride. He nodded slowly. Then I will sit with you, not as a gatekeeper, but as your father. They sat together side by side watching the sunrise. The past was painful, but the future held hope. And as the sun rose higher, Obinna realized that sometimes life's greatest lessons come from the people we overlook. Pa Nnaji had been a gatekeeper of more than just the mansion. He had been a gatekeeper of his son's souls. Though peace had returned to the mansion, Obinna's heart still carried scar. Some nights, he would wake up drenched in sweat, haunted by Adora's cold laughter and the memories of her betrayal. Pa Nnaji noticed his son's struggle. One evening, as they sat under the old mango tree, Pa Nnaji said, pain is like a shadow, Obinna. You cannot outrun it, but you can choose to face it. Obinna sighed deeply. How do I face it, Papa? I trusted her with my life. She almost destroyed me. Pa Nnaji nodded slowly, his wise eye reflecting the faded sunset. You face it by living, not just surviving, but truly reliving. You rebuild, not for her, but for yourself. Inspired by the father's words, Obinna decided to take action. He began focusing on his business, pouring his energy into rebuilding what Adora had tried to steal. But this time, he didn't walk alone. He involved Pa Nnaji in every decision, seeking his advice and wisdom. People in the community noticed the change. Obinna was no longer the arrogant billionaire who ignored his roots. He became humble, kind, and approachable. His story spread, inspiring many who had faced betrayal and loss. But just as Obinna started to heal, a shadow from the past returned. One afternoon, a letter arrived at the mansion with no sender's name. Obinna opened it, and his heart sank as he read the words. You may have defeated Adora, but the darkness she served is still watching. This isn't over. Obinna's hand trembled as he handed the letter to Pa Nnaji. Pa Nnaji's face grew serious. This means there is more to Adora's story. Someone or something is still out there. Obinna felt the old fear creeping back, but this time he wasn't the same man. He was stronger, wiser, and no longer alone. We will find whoever sent this, Obinna said firmly, and we will finish what we started. Pa Nnaji placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Good, because courage isn't the absence of fear. And so, father and son prepared for the next chapter of their journey, knowing that the darkness had not been fully defeated. But this time, they were ready. Days passed after the letter arrived, but Obinna couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. He noticed strange shadows at night, unfamiliar faces lingering near his office, and even whispers in the wind that sent chills down his spine. Pa Nnaji, always calm and observant, noticed it too. Evil doesn't die easily, he said one evening as they sat on the veranda. Adora was only a piece of the bigger puzzle. Obinna clenched his fist. I am tired of being afraid. Whoever is behind this, I will find them. The next day, Obinna hired a private investigator named Chuka, a sharp-minded man with a reputation for solving the most mysterious cases. Chuka listened carefully as Obinna explained everything from Adora's betrayal to the strange letter. Chuka nodded thoughtfully. Whoever sends this wants you to feel weak, but fear is their weapon. We will find them. For weeks, Chuka followed every lead. He questioned former staff, traced Adora's connections, and dug into her past. What he found shocked Obinna. Adora had been part of a secret group, a powerful society that used charm, manipulations, and dark ritual to control wealthy families. She wasn't working alone. Chuka showed Obinna a photo of a man with sharp eyes and a cold smile. This is Chief Dike, Chuka said. He was Adora's mentor, and I believe he is the one who sent the letter. Obinna's blood ran cold. Chief Dike wasn't just any man. He was a respected figure in business circle, known for his wealth and influence. But behind the polished image was a heart filled with darkness. We need to be careful, Pa Nnaji warned. Men like Dike are dangerous, not just because of their powers, but because they hide in plain sight. Obinna nodded. I won't let him destroy what's left of my life. This ends now. Chuka devised a plan. They would confront Chief Dike at one of his public events, where he would feel safe and untouchable. The idea was simple: expose his true face to the world. The night of the event arrived. Obinna dressed in a simple black suit, his heart steady with determination. Pa Nnaji stood by his side, his wise eyes filled with quiet strength. As they entered the grand hall filled with laughter, music, and the clicking of wine glasses, Obinna's eyes looked on Chief Dike. The man smiled warmly, as if he wasn't hiding a heart as dark as night.